Live along with our regular channel, regular mastermind group. So we might get some questions in the chat box from Facebook and from YouTube. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely. The more the merrier.
Fantastic. Very, very good. Okay, let's get a couple other things going in here. How was your prospecting this morning as we're getting warmed up here?
It was good. I commented in the chat group here. I just got a $900,000 listing from a past client. That was actually the last call that I made today before I got ready for this.
I love that. I love it. Good for you. Good for you. We'll get all this information in the city and everything else here just in a minute. Okay, any wins from our group before we get started here this morning? Wins from our group. Anybody want to share anything out there? Josie?
Ethan Jang got a listing from a condo.
All right. Really? A condominium? Wow. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to start teaching that.
I thought.
Yeah. That where
Dan a joke on the condo thing, but maybe I'll piece it together.
So we do a lot of research and a lot of statistics and a lot of analysis. And last month, our CRMLS, our Board of Realtors, which is a very, very large area, it represents about 100,000 real estate agents. So you can imagine it's a pretty robust area. And the number of listings taken in the entire MLS was down 1.2%, which is consistent with what we hear in the marketplace, but not the numbers you hear that are way down, correct? So we did a little bit of research into that, and we found that townhomes and condos were actually up 24%. We're talking year over year. So and I'm giving you the short version of this conversation, okay? So if one was not working condominiums at all, they are potentially going to get 25 to 30% less opportunities than if they included condominiums. And converse to that, if you only worked condos right now, this is just right now, that you would have an inordinate opportunity facing you in our marketplace, Dan. I don't know about yours, but our marketplace. So I kid the agents all the time right now, come on, let's talk condos. Let's get out there. Yeah, they're a little bit less. Yeah, price ranges are down a little bit less than a single family home. However, the odds are, I believe, that if you get a condo listing, that there's a 25 to 35% chance you'll double end it because that opportunity's there. And there's another 30 to 35% chance that you'll sell that seller a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house or something a little bit larger. So there's a 30% opportunity to pick up 2 or 3 transactions or sides on that opportunity, which dwarfs something that maybe is a single family home that you could get for 600,000. So that's the game that's what we're working on here. That's just the FYI. So I don't know, condos, are they an opportunity in your marketplace?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's not as big of a disparity. It's very interesting statistics. That's the benefit of knowing your market. But yeah, I completely agree with you. In my world, motivation is senior to everything. I'd rather have a motivated condo seller than a non-motivated single family home listing. So yeah, I completely agree with that. And if there's more opportunity there, that's where you should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Okay, well, let's get started here this morning. We have a great opportunity with Dan Mumm joining us. Very, very excited about this, to our mastermind with Neil Schwartz this morning. Thank you. Welcome, Dan, to our group.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So good job. So we're going to take some time. We're going to learn about you and what you're doing and what's going on in your marketplace. Why don't you give us a little bit of a kind of a Reader's Digest version of where you work, maybe some of the price ranges, how long in the business, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I've been in the business 5 years. This is my 5th year. I live in Vegas. I service the whole Vegas Valley. It's kind of it's a monolith. There's not really other cities outside of it. We can service all of Vegas within here. It's different from California. So 5th year, last year I did about 75 transactions. Depending on how you measure it, some of those are commercial and those got split up, but it's about 75. This year the goal is to close 100 transactions. Initially it was 120. We dialed it back a little bit with the number of transactions dropping in April here, but we should still track for 100. And my price point's up from last year, which is helping with that. I don't have I'm 30 years old, relatively young, I guess, compared to the average age of a realtor. I don't have any agents that work with me. So when I'm talking about the number of transactions, those are all my personal production. I do have 2 staff members who are assistants, administrative staff. They're not actively selling though. So
Okay.
that.
All right. Well, good. Good. Thank you. Appreciate that. So 5 years ago, before you got into real estate, what were you doing?
So I worked in a call center. It wasn't a sales environment, but it was a customer service environment. It's for a dietary supplement company, so nothing really related to what we do. It did help for sure with verbal communication and talking to people on the phone. That's a very valuable skill set. When I first started in the business, I didn't realize how much of a translation there was with just being comfortable on the phone, but it definitely helped.
Okay. Well, good. All right. So you started there. Did you go to college or anything before that?
Yeah, I went to Florida State University. I played hockey in college, Division I, and then I played a little bit of club there. I think that was probably the biggest carryover from my college education to the real estate business was the athletic background. I know you've interviewed John Sullivan before. We're pretty similar in a lot of those ways where we have that same. I think that athletic background really, really benefits agents if you have one because there's a lot of lessons that you learn that apply directly to our business. Discipline being the foremost thing there.
So discipline, mindset, the ability to be coachable, accountability, those kinds of things.
Yeah, and in addition to all of those are all really good points. I think the number one thing that I took from it is that I view this business as a skill-based business and not a knowledge-based business. I think I might have talked to you about this a little bit, Neil, but when you come from an athletic background, you understand the value of skill. So I use the example of like dribbling a basketball. If I watched you dribble a basketball, I can see how you're doing it, but I don't get any better at it by watching you. I actually have to do it and practice it and rehearse it. And what I view this business as a skill-based business. You might know what the right words to say are. You might know what the objection handlers are. I think most people do at this point. They're not really new or creative. But just because you know how to do it doesn't mean you do it, doesn't mean you do it well, doesn't mean you don't need to practice it every day and constantly improve that skill set. So just playing hockey, I think, helped. It just changed the way that I view the world and business in that regard.
Interesting. So take that transition, take that just a little bit further for me in the scripts and dialogues, maybe approaching it expired or for sale by owner. So tell me more about how you would do that. Our people practice all the time. We focus on this. We focus on our virtual listing presentations, etc. But you're right. There's a little bit sometimes jumping the gap. How can you help us with that? What's your thought process there?
Well, one thing that I see, because I know your agents do practice and rehearse, they've already bought into that, which is great. They have that whole mindset. But one thing that I do see with agents a lot is that their practice and rehearsal isn't specific enough. So they kind of go through the motions, they go through an entire script, like an expired call. Whereas at this point, at least for me, my practice and role play is extremely focused and precise on the things that I need to work on. And I do a lot of repetition. This also ties into the kind of athletic background, I guess, where if you needed to work on something in your skill set in hockey, for example, you wouldn't just skate around and screw around. You would find the specific thing that you need to work on and you would do it over and over and over and over again. So one example is if I feel like I'm getting soft in my commission, I'll have someone give me the commission objection 6 times, 7 times, 8 times in a row, and I will literally just handle that same exact objection the exact same way, just so that I'm conditioning myself to get comfortable with the resistance. And there's no point at which you are a master of that. You're always developing that skill. And when I stop practicing, I start losing discipline, and then I start getting off track with it. So I'm always working on it. So yeah, it's a work in progress.
Well, clearly a work in progress, but I think the way that you've described that for our agents is great that are listening today, is that continue, it's baby steps consistently, not giant steps occasionally. That's what I hear you saying, correct?
That's exactly right. And just to give you a real world example, this week, one question that I've been kind of shying away from, I'll say right now, on the for sale by owner script, I think it's question 11 or 12. What would have to happen before you'd consider hiring an aggressive agent like myself for the job of selling homes, something along those lines? I was kind of shying away from that and not asking it as much. So what I did was yesterday in my role play, I said, hey, I'm going to start right on that question. I'm going to ask it to you. I want you to resist me and not respond well to it. And I want to keep going so that I hear that and I get comfortable with it and do it over and over and over again. So I did that probably 5 or 6 times yesterday. And that was my role play. I didn't go through the entire script. I've done the script 1,000 times. I don't need to start from the very beginning. I focus more on the areas where I need improvement, which is not comfortable, but it's what you need to do to get better, I guess.
Oh, that's great. That is awesome. We actually in our company refer to that kind of practice as advanced script practice. Taking one item, one line, and getting great at it. So good for you. Congratulations. I like that. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit. Your first year in the business, where did the business come from?
Yeah, I did 21 deals the first year. I did about 8 or 9 from an investor, and the rest came from database and expired listings. So what was that, 2015? There were a lot more expireds than there are now. So that was a more lucrative, it's still a really good opportunity, but it was even more lucrative then, I would say. So that was the breakdown there.
Okay, so 14 or 15 transactions. So you came in as a cold start. So you came from Florida?
Yeah.
Is that where you grew up?
No, so I grew up in New Jersey until I was 18, basically. Went to school up there, then I transferred to Florida, and then I moved out here. When I moved here, I didn't know anyone. So yeah, I did kind of have a cold start, which that's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. I didn't know one person when I moved here. So it forced me to require the skills to drum up business. Basically, I had to learn how to prospect because I didn't know anyone. I find a lot of agents who come into the business with a decent sized network, if they learn to use it, it's great. But a lot of them kind of limp along because it kind of floats them for a while because they're sustainable with a few deals they get from their database. They're never really forced to learn how to prospect. So I think that helped me.
Good for you. Good job. So how did you connect with Mike? Did you connect with him right away? Was that something that came on? Tell me about that.
Yeah, slowly, probably like most agents. I guess some people internalize a message right from the beginning, but it took me a while. So I did get exposed to him in the very beginning in the first year. The person who kind of introduced me to the business, luckily, was in coaching and brought me to some of the events. But I still resisted a lot of the system. It really resonated with me from the beginning, but I said I tried to pick and choose like which parts I wanted to use and not use. And so slowly over time, I've realized that that was more of an ego issue. And the more I've taken on, the more successful I've become. And I think if I were to go back and do it again, I think if I had just put my ego aside and not learned from 80 different people and just chose one person to learn from and drill that hole really deep, I think I would be further along than I am right now.
Good information. Thanks for sharing it. So COVID came along. So you started. What did you do business wise in 19? That's the year you did 75 deals.
Correct.
Got it. And what percentage of your business is listings taken versus buyers?
It's almost exactly 75-25. Okay,
good. And do you have some standards about who you put in your car, or you just work in anybody, anytime, anywhere? How's that working for you right now?
On the buyer side specifically?
Sorry?
On the buyer
side. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've actually gone back and forth a little bit. There was one time where I stopped working buyers altogether and I did listings only, and I referred all of my buyer deals out. And that created a small problem, or a big problem, which was that my repeat and referral business suffered. And I found it was because I just looked at the dollar per hour. I said, hey, I'm a good listing agent. I'm just going to focus on that. I'm going to refer out all the buyers, just simplify my business. Theoretically, that's a good idea. But like I said, your buyers stay in town. They are a walking billboard for you if you service them right. So I saw that my repeat and referral business was dropping. A lot of my sellers are moving out of state. And those people, they might give you a deal here and there, but it's not the same. So now that was about 2 years ago. 2019, per Mike's suggestion, I went back to working basically your A+ buyers. So past clients, center of influence, referrals, direct referrals, or agent referrals, or my sellers that were buying. I found those deals were super easy. It was kind of silly for me to give those up because those were very easy, profitable deals. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay, got it. So that works out well for you. And the listings are coming from where? Mostly expireds?
So it's about 50% referral database, and then the remaining portion is a split. It's about 35% expired and for sale by owner, and then the remaining, I don't pay for any advertising or marketing. So there's a few stuff that comes from my Zillow profile just because I have a lot of sales and reviews on there, agent referrals, things like that.
Okay, got it. And the past client and sphere base is about how big now?
It's about 500.
Okay. And how'd you build that? I mean, that sounds like a lot of people, and it's about 50 transactions. So you're running at about 10% of the database. So obviously there are people that know you and you know them. Where did that come from? How did that build?
Yeah, well, I think I actually didn't do a good enough job building it. I think in the beginning, it was kind of a limiting belief because I said, oh, I don't know anyone here. I just moved here, so I don't have a database. So I got to call expireds and for sale by owners. And that's true. I didn't know a lot of people, but you got to start somewhere, right? Like everyone has some database to a degree. You know some people, and at some point, you're going to have to start building that. So I think I let that be an excuse actually for me for too long. I didn't really do a good enough job really intentionally adding names to my database. That was one of the assignments my coach gave me a while ago, which was great. He said, I want you to add 2 names to your database every week. And I'm pretty selective about who goes in there. So how I did it, well, what I did is I looked at the areas of my life where I enjoyed spending time outside of business, and I went there. Instead of just going to join a bunch of different random networking groups or weird things, I thought about where I already spend my time and how I could expand my network there. So for me, I'm big into Olympic weightlifting, just like a little hobby that I have. And at the gym that I went to, I noticed there was a lot of people there that I was already talking to, but I didn't really bring up real estate at all. So then I started adding people from there and broaching those conversations. Another thing that I did that I think everyone should do is get involved in charity work. That's great for building your network, I think, because you're going to increase your average price point because you'll meet and network with the right type of people that way. So that's also been very good. And then also attending events, MFO events, and networking with other agents, like we're doing right now, basically. Another great way to build a network.
Okay. What percentage of business do you get from agents referring you deals, like the Mike Ferry-ish kind of agents sending you business? That's part of your past client and sphere base, part of your 500 also? Part of your,
yeah, I'm considering it part of that for this. It's about 5 deals a year, I'd say around there.
Okay. All right. Well, pays more than pays for coaching.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. It's good for you. Okay, excellent. So how often do you touch your database? I mean, you're getting 50 transactions out of it. So the follow-up, you did the standard Mike Ferry way. Do you do it a little bit more aggressively? You know, are you using a certain CRM? Do you send them pumpkins? How do you do this?
I missed the pumpkin thing. I use that term condescendingly all the time. No, yeah, I don't spend a lot of money. I call all of them a minimum of 4 times a year. I'm really big with my database. One of the principles I really believe in is that the Pareto Principle applies to it, where, and I think Mike talks about this, but you're going to get 80% of your referrals from 20% of your customers. And you could even boil that down more, where you get you'll notice you get 64% of your referrals from 1% of your customers, those A++ people that are just, always talking about you. So at a minimum, I call all of them every 90 days. But what I really focus on is that group, that A++ group that's sending me referrals. I just work on building deeper relationships with them for the most part. Take them to lunch, take them to dinner, go out with them. I probably talk to them once a month at least, most often more than that, probably every couple of weeks for those A++ people. And I focus there. And then, yeah, I get a few deals here and there from that other larger group, but the majority of it comes from those.
Okay, excellent. Good. So shifting gears again a little bit, we have 75 transactions last year. Our goal is 100 transactions. January and February are coming. You're you're pumping along, things are going good. Here comes March. So did it affect you? Did it send you south for a minute? I mean, how'd you work through that, Dan?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually had the best month of my career in April. I broke six figures in a monthly income for the first time in GCI. Actually, no, that was a net income, so that was really cool. No, I mean, if anything, my business increased. I had a record number of listings taken in March. It was either 13 or 14 listings taken, and then in May I had another 10 plus month for listings taken, which was big. So no, it was an opportunity. I think I don't mean to sound brash or disrespectful, but just in terms of business, I wish things like that would happen more often, because I think a lot of agents, their mindset was affected. That was the biggest factor. A lot of agents were just not in the business. I can actually attribute a few deals specifically to that, where I was competing for sale by owner, and the seller told me, hey, like, these other agents basically weren't sure what was going on. They didn't have any solutions for me, so we're listing it with you. So I think it was a huge opportunity for agents who were able to maintain a positive mindset. I really was intentional about getting off of the news and social media. And yeah, I still was involved to a degree with those things. I'm not perfect, obviously, but I tried to really limit my exposure to that. So I think it was a huge opportunity for, and not just me, other agents who had the same approach. What's interesting is that I know people that were in the business the same amount of time, with the same amount of resources, same amount of staff. And I know two people that come to mind right away. And one of them maintained a positive mindset and their business skyrocketed. And one of them literally went out of business. They just quit. Wow. Because their mindset was so negatively affected, and they could have gone the same direction. So it's just interesting to me.
Attitude's everything. So you think your sports background had something to do with that? Do you think maybe the way you grew up had something to do with that? I mean, I don't know. I don't know your history, but what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It definitely helped, but I've always just, since I've been in business, I've been involving myself in personal development all the time, reading books, paying attention to my mindset, being involved with Mike, obviously. And so I've seen, like, this is obviously, I've only been in 5 years. I'm sure a lot of people in this call have been in way longer. But even in the 5 years I've been in, there's been smaller things like this that came up where I noticed all these agents were freaking out, but nothing was really changing ultimately at the end of the day. So I remember when Zillow first started buying houses, all the agents were saying, oh my God, we're going to be out of work. No one's ever going to do this anymore. Or Open Door and OfferPad, all those things. And so I saw these small examples and I was like, there's still plenty of opportunity out here. It seems like people are just letting this affect their mindset. And when the COVID thing happened, I saw it as a bigger problem, obviously, but it was just another example of that. So yeah, I guess that would be my only insight.
Good for you. Good. What do you think your superpower is, Dan?
Yeah, that's a interesting question. I don't know if there's any one specific thing, but if I were to say something, I would just say I'm an analytical person, in case you haven't figured that out. So I pay attention to my hourly rate. I know exactly how much I earn for every hour that I prospect. I understood that from the very beginning when I first got into this business, that there's really only 3 things that I do that generate income. It's prospect, go on appointments, and negotiate contracts. Everything else should be delegated out. Literally everything else I shouldn't do. So I earn $700 every hour I'm on the phone. That's not like a made up fantasy number. It's like, if you take the amount of money I've earned for the year and divide it by the number of hours, it comes out to $700. And for most agents, it should be at least $300 to $400 if you're doing anything. So I realized, like, if I'm getting paid $700 an hour for every hour I'm on the phone, that means every hour that I'm not on the phone is costing me. It's costing me the difference between whatever I could hire someone for. So in the very beginning, I hired administrative staff. I had at least a TC from like my second or third transaction. And I was probably early hiring people. I hired people earlier for my production level, I think, than what most agents would do. And so that's allowed me to just maintain the focus on growth. And if there's any one specific thing, that would be it.
Okay, well, cool. Good for you. Good job. So what's the plan? How are you going to take advantage of the rest of this year? The business is coming back, but Vegas has had some issues. I mean, what I'm thinking of is, really, here you are, you have a couple of assistants, but you're really a lone practitioner, so to speak. and you're doing 100 transactions. 100 transactions is, let's call it 9 closings a month. Okay, right? That's a lot for you to do. I mean, do you have a life other than this business to list and sell, that many transactions?
Yeah, maybe not as much as some people. I don't have a family. I'm single, so that helps. I have hobbies, obviously, and things that I do. I have my parents that live here in town, but no, you're right. It is a big time commitment. But that being said, really the bottleneck on my time is the buyer portion of the business. The listing portion, I mean, me and 2 assistants can handle 20 to 30 listings at a time really without any issues. I'm not even answering calls on weekends. Honestly, most days I'm out of the office by 3 or 4. If I'm not, I'm usually doing something wrong. So no, it's not really as big of an issue as you might think. It's really the buyers. Like I think last month I had 5 or 6 buyers that I put in escrow, and my my coach was getting on me for it. He's making fun of me for being a buyer's agent. But yeah, that's where it starts to really add up in the time. But if I maintain the focus on the listings, yeah, the next logical step, I think what you're alluding to, would probably to bring on a showing agent or a buyer's agent, which would help keep my life a little more normal.
Okay. Well, look, I think you're doing a great job. I think 100 transactions a year, making probably in excess of or right around $1 million a year. Single guy. I don't know what's wrong with this picture.
Agreed.
Exactly. Good. Okay. So changes you might do to become a little bit more efficient, take advantage of the opportunities for the next 3 to 6 months because I think you're right. I think that this is shaking up a lot of agents and they still don't know what to do. Give me some suggestions. Help me help them.
Yeah. So one of the things I heard Mike talk about recently was that obviously we're in a low inventory market, and you guys are too, probably lower than ours. And so it's more difficult than usual to get listings. So what that means for us, I think, is that we need to be more aggressive in our follow-up. We need to strengthen our definition of what a lead is. That's really helped me a lot this year, where I'm not keeping these people in my system for a year and 2 years and calling them every 90 days. I've really shortened my definition of what a lead is. And that's helped me maintain my focus on people that are doing business right now. And yeah, it forces you to prospect more because you're not calling the same person 80 times. But I think that's good. It gets rid of that sense of complacency. So that would be one adjustment. And then improving your skills, like we've talked about before. I think everyone can improve there, especially if you're calling a lot of expireds for sale by owners. That's a skill-based business. The person who earns that business is the one generally with the highest level of skill and with the most consistency. So that would be my suggestion there.
Okay, well, cool. This is great. This has been great. Fantastic stuff. You're really quite an inspiration for a lot of us, and I appreciate the time. You take a couple questions right now?
Yeah, absolutely. No,
Perfect.
I appreciate it.
Okay, yeah. Okay, questions for Dan, things that he's working on, things that he's doing, things he can help you with. Go ahead, Albert.
Well, first of all, thank you, Dan, for sharing your knowledge. It's impressive that in 5 years you accomplished so much, but something along the lines of going through the motions. Did you ever had a specific breakthrough where you realized that in the past you thought you were actually focusing, but realized that you did not, and you had a breakthrough where it really showed you not going through the motions?
Yeah, really good question. I can't recall a specific time, but it's kind of something I've constantly worked on. I'm just thinking of a few, like one way that I look at this is if you're 50% on a phone call in our business, you don't get paid 50%, you get paid 0. Like you have to be 100% there to get the results you want. It's the same thing with like a listing. The seller's interviewing 3 agents. You don't get paid anything for being the second best agent, right? So that's what you learn is going through the motions just doesn't pay well. It's similar to golf. Like the first place person in a golf tournament gets paid like 15 million. Second place gets like 1 or 2 million. There's a big drop off. So no, I don't really recall a specific time, but there were definitely times where I know I hung up on a phone call and I know like, hey, if I was more rested or more prepared or more ready for that, like that could have changed the outcome. I actually had one call that I can think of where it was a past client I listed his house before, but he changed his mind, decided to take it off the market. It was like 6 months later. I've been following up with this guy, and he didn't call me. I called him to check in. And he's like, "Oh, thanks, Dan. Like, I've actually decided I'm going to list it with another agent." I was like, "Whoa, that's interesting." So I was on the phone with him for about 20 minutes asking him questions, turned it around, ended up selling that property, it was a smaller deal, probably $6,000 or $7,000. But that was an example where, like, if I had just gone through the motions and I wasn't prepared and skilled and ready for that call, I literally would have earned zero. Like, I changed it from zero to a $7,000 paycheck by being ready for it. So yeah, there's been a few instances like that, and you kind of learn from your mistakes by screwing it up enough times. But that's that, I guess. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it goes back to preparation pretty much.
Yeah, the way I look at it is like, you know what's funny? This is something I did as an analytical person. I looked at the past 100 deals that I closed, and I looked at what time of day I called that person and made my first contact with them. And the results were like ridiculous. I found that like 90% of the deals that I closed, I called them between 7:30 and 9, and then like 99% of them I called before noon. There was like no one that I called after 12 that I closed. And so what I realized is like that window of like 7:30 to 9 is my money making window. It's like extremely important that my entire life revolves around being good during that hour and a half. I'm going to bed at a certain time. I'm working out at a certain time. I'm getting ready. I'm role playing at a specific time so that I'm world class during that window, because that's when the results really matter the most. So yeah, that's the importance. I guess that all speaks to your question about like going through the motions versus being intentional about what you're doing. I still catch myself doing it every now and then. I mean, another example recently, I just closed 2 days ago a deal where I called an old expired listing. I'm sure a lot of you guys call them too. I get to the end of the phone call. It's actually the wrong number. I ask him, "Hey, so what about you? Any real estate needs? Looking to buy or sell the next year?" And he's like, "Not really. Not at this time." Almost hung up the phone, but I was like, "Oh, heard something there. What was it?" So I asked him, "Well, what about in the next year or so? Is that something you might consider?" He's like, "Yeah, actually, we're thinking about buying in the next year." The conversation turns around. 20 minutes later, this is a buyer lead that I just closed and I earned a $18,000 check from. So again, that's another one where if I was just going through the motions and not really being intentional about getting results, I would have literally lost that deal. So yeah, just a couple of examples.
So Dan, let me ask you a question on that, something that comes up. So that hour and a half, that 2 hours that you need to be focused and listening on the phone, really intense. The world actually, your cell phone's here, your computer's open. I don't know, the cricket walks by. Anything to take our attention. How do you stay focused for that period of time and push all that garbage out of the way? Because you're right on. You're exactly at the money point. This is the difference between everyone else, all the average agents, and someone like you that's a superstar. Help us with this.
Yeah, I'm pretty fanatical about that, to the point where I think my staff and other people think I'm crazy. But I don't look at my phone or respond to phone calls or emails until 12, generally ever. So I put my phone, when I'm really suffering from distractions, I give my phone to my assistant, or I put it in a drawer where I can't access it, my cell phone, and I only dial from my office line. And then I block my email. There's a little app called the Freedom app where you can block access to your email from certain devices. So I literally can't get into my email except for certain hours between 12 and 1. So yeah, I'm fanatical about it. The other day, one of my staff came like looking in the window while I was prospecting, and like they know how intense I am about it. So I opened the door and I'm like, "I hope someone's dying right now. I hope this is important." And they laughed about it. But yeah, no, I'm huge on that. I think it's very easy to get sucked into those distractions, but what you have to realize is that prospecting is the lifeblood of our business. Nothing else matters more than that. If you don't prospect, you don't have any other problems to worry about. So yeah, that's kind of my solution, I guess.
Well, I appreciate that, Dan. The last few words, the last two or three sentences I'm going to cut that out and I'm going to play that on a daily basis. It's going to be on a loop in my company. That was great. Fantastic. Good stuff. Other questions? Other questions for Dan?
I have a question.
Please, Tess.
All right. So you're saying that you prospect from 7:30 to 9, right? So do you role play? Because most of us role play like around 7:30 to 8. So what time do you role play?
Yeah, before that, usually I'm in the office around 7:05, and that's when my role play is until about 7:30, 7:40, around then, just depending on how long it goes. And then I'm prospecting after 9 too, but that's just, I try and split it up into 90-minute segments because I just find it's hard to really focus for more than 90 minutes at a time. You start getting diminishing returns on your attention and energy. So I do 7:30 to 9, take a break, we practice, and then 10 to noon, I'm back on the phones typically.
Got it. Okay.
But
I do think I've tried role playing different times, but I've really found that there's something to be said for role play right before you get on the phone. I mean, not to beat it to death with the sports analogy, but you're going to warm up before you play, right? It just makes sense. So I've really found it to be beneficial and to also help tying it all together, not going through the motions, to do that role play immediately before your first calls. I've done it both ways, and that's really helped me a lot.
Okay.
good. Great. Good question, Tess. Thank you. Thank you. Other questions for Dan? Other questions for Dan?
I have
go ahead, Michael.
Yeah. Hi, Dan. So my question is that, because you mentioned that you sell a lot of houses and you're a single guy making close to $1 million a year. At some point, do you have any kind of complacency that kicks in, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, that's tough. That's a $1 million question, how to constantly be growing. And at a certain point, your motivation changes, I think. When I was younger, I had some materialistic goals to drive a certain car and have a certain kind of house, and that has to change because I can frankly afford a lot of stuff that I want or need at this point. I'm an active real estate investor too. That's really one of my main passions. And so that real estate investing requires a lot of money. If I'm trying to buy 4 houses a year, 5 properties a year, that takes a lot of capital. And so that's what really pushes me and drives me. Really, my main motivating factor is I ask myself every day, what am I truly capable of? That's what I measure myself against. I try not compare myself to anyone else, whether they're doing less than me or more than me. It's very easy in our business to get complacent because probably for most of the people on this call, we're all doing way better than the average agent for the most part. So it's easy to say, oh yeah, the average agent does 2 to 3 deals a year, I'm great. But it's like, well, what does that mean? Just because that's average doesn't say anything about you, right? And so I catch myself in that line of thinking a lot. So it's a really good question, but ultimately what ends up motivating me is at the end of each day, what percentage of my true God-given potential did I reach today? Like, how hard did I really push compared to what I was truly capable of doing? And that helps to kind of just stomp out the complacency, because it's usually not much. I'd say, like, for me, probably scratching 50%. Capable of personally. I don't know.
That's very interesting. Would you say it's a vision that's more motivating you, or would you say it's a daily goal that's more motivating you?
I'd say it's a daily goal. The vision is more of just the direction that I want to go, but I like to think on a more. I find that it's more motivating and stimulating to look at things on kind of a shorter term, more granular scale, because I can really tell. It's hard for me to say, for example, like, in the past year, did I work really hard? But if you asked me yesterday, did you work really hard? I could give you a good, discrete answer to that, right? So, that's how I look at it.
Thank you very much for that.
Good, great, good stuff. All right, other questions for Dan? Other questions? Go ahead, Cherry. Cherry, and then I'll come to you, Yvonne.
Okay. Hi, Dan. I was just wondering what your morning routine is like, and also what time you go to bed to be prepared to work out and do everything you need to do to be like on point for 7:30 prospecting.
Yeah, that's I go to bed pretty early, so maybe that's also why I'm single. I don't go out really much. I'm usually in bed by 8:45 to 9:30. That's my goal. And what's funny is people give me trash about it. They always make fun of, like, my old man bedtime. And I'm like, all right, well, who's making more money, me or you? So that's a big thing. I like to try and get into bed early. Usually in the mornings I'm up. I'm not super early riser. Get up 5:30 to 6. I read for a little bit, and then I come right to the office and focus first on business. I've tried doing the workout in the morning thing, like 5:30 to 6. For me, I'm more motivated to work first thing when I wake up. If I work out first, for me, it's like almost a distraction, because when I work out, I kind of have the same attitude as work, where I'm trying to get better at it. I'm thinking about what I need to be doing, and it's kind of mentally takes some of my energy and, drains my willpower a little bit. So I like to focus on business first. I try and get out of the office by 3:30. I have 2 listing appointment times, 1:30 and 3:30, and then I try and not linger or languish around in the office anymore. Actually, one thing while we're talking about that, my coach this year gave me a really helpful tip, and he said that, Dan, I don't want you to prospect at all in the afternoons anymore. And I was like, well, why? I feel like it's good to do that. And he said, well, if you're allowing yourself to do it in the afternoon, you're giving yourself too much slack in the morning, and you're probably getting distracted, and you're saying, oh, if I don't get to it now, I'll do it later. So now that I know I'm done at 12, no matter what, it forces me to really stay focused in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I'm more able to recover and get ready for the next day. So that helps.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Good stuff. Yvonne, thank you. Thank you.
Wow, Dan, you just inspired me so much. You answered so many of my questions. Just the last question I was going to ask you, when do you work out? See, for me, I just heard your reply, but for me, I spend too much time working out. Before the COVID, I spent like an hour and a half in the gym with the trainer. And then I started prospecting like after 9:30 or 10. So already past the money-making window. So now I'm going to switch my exercise, whatever, to afternoon. So I'm going to, I like the idea, your
Robert,
coach.
did you know that?
Oh my gosh, I wasted so much time. No wonder I'm not productive. I spend way too much time on doing those things. And also you said your coach told you not to prospect in the afternoon, because I always think, okay, I started late, I'll prospect in the evening or afternoon, but it's not productive. When you think you can prospect in the afternoon, you slack up in the morning, like me. So I have a lot to change. And also you said, it's a skill-based. You cannot just go through, cannot watch somebody play basketball. You have to practice. For me, I go through emotion. I think I work hard, but I don't. I go through emotions. I'm not attentional. And it's, oh gosh, it's just like you're talking to me today. I had a breakthrough. I just got ahead of myself.
Yvonne, good job.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you. Really inspirational.
Dan, thank you. Thank you for beating her up. I appreciate that.
Yeah, this is the
wake
best
me
coaching
up.
call.
Really
This is the best
wake me
coaching
up.
call she's had in a long time, Dan. We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Can I
Let's
ask
see.
one more question
Go
real
ahead,
quick?
Frank. Sure.
So, hey, Dan, do you focus on how many contacts you hit or just appointments?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've done both. The 2 metrics that I look at are number of contacts and hours prospected, actually. I find that those are the most helpful in determining what moves my business forward, because you could do everything right. You could do you could make all your calls today, execute perfectly, be really intentional, and still not get any appointments, right? It's just the nature of the business. Mm-hmm. So I don't really use that as a metric of whether I did my job or not. It's really the contacts and the hours prospected. The reason I look at both is because if I'm calling my database, obviously you make less contacts that way. Those conversations last 20 or 30 minutes sometimes. And those are actually, one database call is probably worth 10 cold calls or more. So that's why you need to look at the hours too, I think, and not just the number of contacts, but both are important for sure.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Good. Excellent. Very good. Well, everyone, unmute yourselves, please. Unmute yourselves. Let's give Dan a giant hand. Woohoo! All right. Good stuff. Very, very good. That was great. Dan, we're going to post information, your email address and cell phone number here on the Zoom group chat. So if they have any questions or referrals for you, that they can get them over to you.
Yeah,
one of the things that, thank you, really, really enlightening, powerful, good stuff. Always excited to meet somebody that does so well in such short period of time in this business. It's very inspiring. What we do now is we'll go through and ask our team what they learned and talk about that a little bit. You're welcome to stay or go on with the rest of your day, but I wanted to again thank you so much for your time, your energy, and your inspiration.
Yeah, no,
Appreciate it.
I'll stay on for a little bit.
Okay, great. Okay, so what'd you learn? What did we learn today from Dan? Who wants to go first? Go ahead, Robert.
First of all, Dan, really appreciate you taking the time. Know you're a busy guy, so I think that's really helpful. You know, a couple things that I got out of it is, you know, how cool, calm, and collected he is throughout the entire conversation. No matter what questions you ask, he's very humble. You know, things like that. And, you know, like when he was talking about how hard, you know, he can look at it as he's one of the top agents really nationally closing 7,500 deals. But the question more is how hard did I push today compared to what I'm really capable of doing? You know, because it's really easy in our business to close 10 deals and think you're Michael Jordan, you know, because no one around you is very few people are doing that. I think that's a really good thing that he said. And then the other one was, there are only 3 things I do that generate income: prospect, go on appointments, negotiate contract. Everything else should be delegated out. You know, And so my question that I wrote down next to that is, how much of your time per day are you allocating to those 3 things?
Dan went off.
Oh, that's not the question for Dan. That's a question for us.
Okay, got it.
Like that's the question that I wrote down for us is how much time, when we look at our schedules, how much time are we delegating to those 3 things?
Well, it's a great question. Good stuff, Robert. Thank you. Other things we learned today. What else did we learn? Go ahead, Albert.
Be 100% intentional with every call, because I realized the way he phrased it was that if you are, the example he gave when he was about to hang up with the one lead, he turned it and made 18,000 on it, which makes me think that if I see it like that, if I don't pay attention to one call that might take a minute or 2, that's just a waste of 2-3 minutes that I didn't. It was worthless. It was meaningful. I mean, meaningless.
There's 2 thoughts there. I think you're on target there. The 2 thoughts are being intentional in the call and listening to what the client has to say, number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do enough of that as a group and individuals. And the second part is when you're practiced enough, you don't have to think about what the response is, because the response is a natural response because you've practiced it so much. He clearly has practiced it. He didn't use the golf analogy where the professional comes to the 19th hole, you know, the bar, and they go in and they, you know, they've been golfing with a professional and an amateur, and the amateur goes to the bar and the professional goes back out and hits, you know, another 200 balls because he missed one shot or the shot wasn't exactly. That's what he does. He doesn't like the way he's handling his commission objection. He has them thrown at him 6 times, 8 times, 10 times, 12 times. You know, we don't like the way we handle the commission objection. I'll get better next time. And that's it. I mean, how much time do you actually spend with it? Not you, Albert, you, the group. But we're all guilty of that. Every single one of us run into stuff every single day. What can we do to work on it? So anyway, that's kind of what I thought I heard there that you were talking about, Albert. So good observation. What else did we learn today?
Can I say something?
Of course. Want to talk about condos?
One thing that I probably have to learn in this business is be analytical now. If you heard what he says, he measures everything that he does. He looks at his numbers when he's prospecting, looks at his number, how much he's going to get paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who does that Freedom app, you know, like puts himself,
Nobody.
But nobody. So
Nobody.
everything that he does, and at the end of the day, he looks at what is it that I did today that made me productive. He's very analytical.
Yeah.
Very analytical.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And being focused during that period of time. I found it kind of interesting that he's never made any money on outbound calls after noontime. I'll bet you we have similar things in our worlds that we would find that after certain times or certain things or in between this time and this time that we don't generate any business. So it might be I think that's something to look at. Absolutely. Good stuff. What else did we learn today? Go ahead, Josie. I can't hear you. Can you guys hear her?
Okay. He's very mature.
Yes.
For his age.
Yes.
Now, he said several times, focus on the skills and practice, just like you said. He has an objection that he feels he didn't handle well. Hit me with it, hit me with it, hit me with it. Let me get numb on it. Let me understand, go over it. And then again, he, like so many of the other agents have said, prospecting is the lifeblood of our business. If you're not prospecting, you're not making money. If you're not making a call, you're not making money.
If you're not going on an appointment, you can't make what?
Money.
Money. Yeah, good point. Okay, good. All right. What else did we learn today? Anything else? So I wrote down, thank you, Robert. What I wrote down was the question that he asked himself all the time. What am I truly capable of? Wow. What am I truly capable of? Because a lot of times we feel really good. Things are going well. You look at the numbers, things are happening, blah, blah, blah. Yet some of you have these amazing closings right now and, lots of business generating, a number of listings taken. But what are you really capable of? What are you really capable of? The other part, and I don't know that you picked up on it. I think the guy the other day talked about it a little bit too. I've heard this 2 or 3 times this week. You need to get more rest. You need to get more rest. You need to be rested for this business. Okay? You can't burn the candle at both ends. You can do it, but you can't do it for a long period of time. So you need to make sure that you're more rested, and that you're prepared, you're practiced, rested and practiced. Okay, good. All right.
Can I say
go ahead.
something?
Sure,
I
of
think
course.
that I think that this is one of those like if you don't have the strength in certain areas, like what Tess said in terms of being analytical, this is one of the talks I would listen to 5 more times.
It's very interesting you say that, Valerie. I can't wait to listen to this one again. You're right. Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Good stuff. Okay. It is 1:08. What do we have next, Robert?
Virtual 5-5-10. So I'm going to do a class on how to do a virtual 5-5-10. It's a little bit different than the 5-5-10 we used to do because no door knocking. So I'm going to go through that. I'm going to show you how to upload property insights and the effect of that as well. So should be a good class. Actually, I even put together a PowerPoint presentation for it, which is not my strength, but I just think it's pretty cool. So we're going to go through that at 1:15. We'll start that at 1:15. If you follow this system, you will make more money by the end of the year. That is going to happen. So 1:15, we will get started.
Woohoo! All right, everybody. Good work. Thank you. Hey, Robert, can you take a minute and call me?
Sure.
Thanks.